Hey everyone, I'm your host Matt, just waiting for this to kind of go out and get a few notifications out to people, get a few people in the live stream, and then I will start properly. You can see Jonathan, first one in, very quick. Okay, so Cole's a guest for today, so hopefully he'll be joining very soon. Yep, he is. So there's a few of you in here. This will be going out on Instagram TV 2, IGTV, which we posted on our Instagram page, and it'll also be going out on YouTube as well. So a lot of you know, I am Matt. I'm the founder of Lakers UK. I haven't been too active on Instagram in this capacity in terms of live streams. I have been a guest on a few, but I haven't really hosted many. So a few of you might not recognize my face, but Instagram is something that we want to utilize a little bit more moving forward. So there will be more of these Instagram lives, and we will be pushing more content through Instagram for you all. It's been a huge piece of growth for us. Naturally, I have used Twitter, and Twitter is still what we're most active on. There'll be more updates, more posts throughout the day over on Twitter, but that's kind of condensed through Instagram, so you still get the same updates on Instagram as you do through Twitter, even though I've always prioritized Twitter. We'll get Cole on, and we're going to speak about the Portland series. Obviously, LeBron and AD. I'm repping the AD jersey today with the Wish logo as well. I got this from Staples Center, so very cool. And then we'll speak about the supporting cast, kind of who we think is going to be the Lakers' second round opponents between Houston and OKC, with Houston 3-2 up in that series. And we'll just go from there, just a casual conversation. So what we'll do is we'll get Cole in now, as he's probably patiently waiting. So just waiting for him to come in. Thanks to everyone that's joined. Hello to you all.
Hello.
Hi, mate. How are you?
How's it going?
Yeah, not bad. How was your Sunday dinner?
Oh, it was nice. It was great. Yeah, it was really good.
I haven't had a Sunday dinner in like a year.
I haven't had one for ages either. But yeah, it was great.
They don't exist over here in Paris.
No. Well, the girlfriend decided to treat us this weekend, so yeah, can't complain.
What we'll do is we'll jump straight in. Can you hear me good, yeah?
Yeah, all good. As long as you can hear me, all right.
Yeah, pretty good, yeah. So we'll get into the Portland series. So obviously the Lakers just won the series 4-1. They dropped the first game in quite disappointing fashion, then they came back with 4 straight wins. What did you make of the series as a whole? Was there anything that stood out to you, positives, negatives? I'll give you the floor.
Basically, LeBron still has that level too. And obviously it's always a slight concern every year when LeBron goes into playoffs. Obviously more so now he's a Laker. But it's always a question whether he still has that, and it's ridiculous now. It's becoming more and more ridiculous every year he does it. And the fact that he can average 30, 10, and 10 in a playoff series at age 35, is he now?
17th season, yeah.
17th season is absolutely ridiculous. And then Anthony Davis proving to be unguardable when he's off the floor, or when LeBron's off the floor as well, is a big part of our offense at the end of the day. If LeBron shows up and AD doesn't show up, it's a much more difficult task for LeBron to be able to drag us through a series. But as long as AD, especially in the mid-range, as long as AD's showing up, I can't see a team in the West that can stop us, which is a positive, obviously.
Yeah, I think so, yeah. I mean, I have a few of the stats here, and LeBron averaged 27.4 points, 10.2 rebounds, 10.2 assists throughout the series. I didn't realize he was shooting this well from beyond the arc, but he actually shot at a 41.4% rate from beyond the arc, which is absolutely incredible.
Last night when he was shooting, I thought his consistency from beyond the arc. But the thing is, this is the first off season he's had where he's had that consistent 3-point shot. Because the last postseason, I'd say rather, the last postseason he had back in 2018, he didn't quite have that string to his bow yet, and he added it once he joined the Lakers. And obviously, this is his first Lakers postseason, and now it's a massive addition to his game in the fact that when that shot's going down, he's unguardable.
Yeah,
Because
and then
he'll get a shot at the rim or he'll get a shot like that, and you just can't stop him.
definitely as well. And I thought it was quite interesting with Anthony Davis, who pretty much 30 points he averaged over the course of the series, 9.4 rebounds, and 4.2 assists as well, which was one whole assist above his regular season average, which I thought was really interesting. I mean, for a big to do as much as he does and then stay consistent on the defensive end as well, 1.6 blocks, 1.4 steals per game, only 1.2 turnovers as well, and converting at just under a 60% rate from the field. Like you said, just the man's absolutely unstoppable. I mean, if he signs long-term moving forward, which it looks like, you don't want to speak too early, but many people think he will, only 27 years old as well.
Oh, it's a massive part of our future, obviously, and it's obviously it's the reason that you put all them picks and assets out there to get him in the first place, and it's the reason that when the trade went through, as Lakers fans, I was happy anyway with it because we hopefully have that insurance that he wants to stay, and it looks like he will because he looks quite happy, and when he is on. And especially with a matchup like Portland, earlier in the series, they were putting Gabriel on him, and Gabriel was struggling against him big time. You saw it with Portland where they had to change the lineup completely. They had to start putting Whiteside and Nurkic on the floor together just to try and slow AD down. And even then, AD then moved his game outside and started shooting from beyond the arc and obviously the mid-range as well. And to have the capability to change his game to what the defense wants him to shoot and still own a game, it's massive for us.
Definitely. And with the series as a whole, obviously there was that disappointing game at first, which is even more disappointing when you're a UK Laker fan and it is what finishes at like maybe 5:30 in the morning and the Lakers lose, especially in late fashion like they did. But there was a double team that led to a Trent Jr. 3 in that game. That pretty much iced the game. And if that didn't happen, the Lakers could have taken that first game. So we could very well have been speaking about a sweep right now, quite easily, definitely, against a Portland side that were supposed to give the Lakers trouble. And it was a good series, but there were two out-and-out blowouts. There was one game where the Lakers just grasped hold of it late on. And last night's game was a bit closer, but again, the Lakers grasped it, late on. Were you expecting the series to be that easy for the Lakers? Did you think it was easy for the Lakers?
I thought it'd be closer, but obviously, as soon as after game one, once we were into game two, past half time in game two, you could see that Portland were knackered. And fair enough to them, they've just played 8 playoff games basically to get into the position that they were in. They then had to play a play-in game, which is a similar pressure game, and then play a game one against a Laker team. I think the game one was the only reason you're ever upset after a loss is if you feel like your team could have won. And that's that upset that you feel that I felt after game one, in the fact that we didn't play that well at all, and it was close right up until the end. And obviously, game two onwards, we stepped on the gas a bit more, started shooting better, which is a massive part of it. And Portland were just knackered. Their backcourt struggled. McCollum was massive last night on a back injury as well. It's going to be interesting to see what comes of that in the coming days with his kind of recovery from that. Especially he played the whole game up until the last 3 or 4 minutes. But yeah, they were just tired. Nurkic had come off a broken leg and gone straight into playoff type basketball. Obviously, Lillard was nursing a couple injuries and obviously has gone home now as a result of them.
Hmm.
It's just it was too much for Portland in the end, especially coming up against a one seed as strong and it's experienced as the Lakers as well. The Lakers were never going to panic when they were down 1-0 just because of the sheer experience in that team playoff wise. And to be honest, I was never concerned when we were down 1-0 that it wasn't that we weren't going to come back and recover from it.
Yeah, I predicted 6 games, but obviously it was done in 5. But let's move the conversation over to some of the supporting cast. Obviously, everyone's speaking about LeBron, AD, obviously, understandably so as well, especially given last night where LeBron had 36, 10, and 10, and then AD had 43 points, 9 and 4. So one thing which bring up whoever you want out of the supporting cast here. But one thing which I was surprised at when I was looking at them as how they have performed throughout the series was obviously that first game is a write-off. I think everyone just played poorly in that first game, but it's how good KCP has been shooting.
I was going to say
because in the bubble, obviously. What's happening to Danny Green is happening to Danny Green. Like, you may want to get into that. I'll leave that over to you. But with KCP, he's shooting 39.7% from 3-point range. That's pretty much exactly what we want him to do. And if he's shooting like that through the next series and beyond, he's going to be absolutely huge for the Lakers in relatively limited minutes as well.
Well, yeah. I was saying in the group chat last night while we were watching the game that there are players that when we came in during the bubble games, when you were putting up shots, you didn't expect them to hit, and KCP was a big one of them. And now when a shot goes up, you expect it to go in for KCP, and players like Kuzma as well. Kuzma's been massive, stepping
on the defensive end, yeah,
and his defensive end as well. But just his consistency offensively, he's stepped into the offensive role coming off the bench where, if there's 14 seconds, 10 seconds left on the shot clock and nothing's happening, you can give Kuzma the ball and expect something to be created, which is massive for Kuz, obviously. Danny Green is obviously going through what he's going through, and unfortunately for Danny Green, he's not the best playoff performer. That showed big time last year with the Raptors as well. He struggled in the playoffs with the Raptors. Obviously, you hope that he can bring it back a bit, especially because I think he could be a massive part of trying to stop Harden and slow Harden down. Mm-hmm. He's disciplined on the defensive end enough to not foul constantly, and if he can offensively be good enough to just stand in the corner and hit a three, then I think we need him on the court, obviously. Outside of that, you look at players like Caruso, who's massive defensively against the backcourt of Portland.
Absolutely brilliant, yeah.
He literally, at any time on the floor during that series, he was the hardest working player. And that's the difference with Caruso. And whatever he's shooting, however he's playing, he does tend to get into foul trouble now and then. But you can expect that he's going to play every play like it's the last play of Game 7 of the finals. And that's the massive thing with Caruso, especially on the defensive end as well. He's going to be a big part of slowing down Harden, I think.
Yeah, I think with Caruso as well, his box scores have been filling out a little bit. I mean, I've got his stats here, and obviously he's still got them averages of 5 points.
That's what hurts him around the league, unfortunately. If you don't watch him, you don't see his impact. You really don't.
But in this series, he averaged 3.6 assists and 3 rebounds as well, which were about 1.5 in each category up on the regular season. And that third game where I'm looking here, he had 10.7 assists and 4 rebounds. So obviously the effect that he has on the court doesn't always come up in the box score. There was many instances last night and just in general where he'll get deflections, he'll fight for loose balls, he'll earn extra possessions through charges, things like that. He does all the little things. But especially that, 10, 4, and 7 box score in Game 3, it does kind of suggest that there is a bit more to him,
Well,
and
definitely.
people think.
He's a massive part when LeBron's not on the floor as well. Obviously, he's massive. We've seen that from stats through the regular season, that he's massive when LeBron's on the floor as well. But during a playoff series, when you need a secondary ball handler to come in when LeBron's out, he's a massive part of actually being consistent. That's something he has struggled with in the past, which he's brought into this season. And he's actually a really consistent ball handler now, and he's reliable, and you can trust him with the ball, which is obviously massive. And it's going to be interesting to see how Vogel tries to bring in Rondo into that rotation, which is obviously now Caruso's justified his minutes. And because I definitely think Vogel will want to put Rondo in there somewhere, but where does he pull them minutes from is the interesting part.
Definitely. And obviously we've got a question from Amandeep in the comments, and it is in relation to a question that we'll bring up a little bit later about second round matchup. So we will get to that a little bit later. If anyone does have any questions, just fire them in. We'll try and get round to them. But obviously you mentioned how Vogel will incorporate Rondo in the lineup. What do you think of Waiters and J.R. Smith and how they've been incorporated in and or not incorporated in?
I understand not using Waiters in the series, and a lot of people don't understand it. Obviously, we're constantly asking, why is Waiters not playing? Why is Waiters not getting the minutes that he was getting during the end of the regular season? Excuse me. And he wouldn't be able to defend against that backcourt. He's just not consistent enough defensively to allow him to be on the floor, because he doesn't make it up offensively, unfortunately, especially against that backcourt, and especially the threes that team shoot. And unfortunately, if we end up facing Houston, it's a similar matchup, unfortunately, for us, in the fact that I can't see him seeing too much of the floor because of his defensive shortcomings. His offensive game doesn't make up for his defensive shortcomings, unfortunately. And we have the length in someone like JR as well. We have the length defensively to play other players before we play Waiters. You know what I mean? Especially if we can continue to score consistently through players like Kuzma, KCP, and Caruso. We can get away without playing Waiters. JR is a come and go player, and we saw his turnover last night when he stood out of bounds, and it's been joked about all day today. But I think he could be a big part of this team moving forward if Vogel chooses to give him the minutes, because when he's on, and he's massive, and he can play in big game moments. We saw that in Game 7 of the 2016 finals. Coming out in the fourth quarter, I think it was, he hit 3 straight shots. And it was massive for Cleveland at that time. It brought them back into the game. So JR's capable of performing big in the playoffs, and it's a good name to have at the end of the bench if we need it. And he's got the length defensively. He's got the whereabouts defensively as well. He's not as thick as he looks.
Yeah,
I say that jokingly, but he is. He's intelligent. He's been in the league for as long as he has for a reason. And when he's on, shooting wise, he's on, and he can catch fire from beyond the arc. And that's a player the Lakers almost don't have, especially if Danny Green's not shooting well. And it's a player that I think we could use moving forward, especially if Vogel finds himself looking towards the end of the bench. If Danny Green continues to struggle, say another player starts to struggle, say KCP starts to struggle again, I think he looks at JR before he looks at Waiters, just because of the experience of being in those moments, and the fact that he's got the length defensively and he knows where he's at defensively.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit more versatility with JR, and it's something that we've all spoken about in the group chat, and we all speak about, with each other. And obviously Lakers Twitter and over on Instagram comments, I've seen many things, and I think just different players will step up for the Lakers in different I wouldn't even say series, in different games, really. Like every game's different. And it wouldn't surprise me if maybe if Dion Waiters sees minutes against Houston or OKC, comes in, heats up for one game, scores like 15 points, and then barely plays the next game. And I won't have a problem with that. That's just is what it is. They're brilliant names to have on the end of the bench. But I agree with you with JR. I think the fact that he's got that defensive upside just kind of puts him ahead in the pecking order.
I
But
mean,
even
he's not an elite defender by any means, but he's just
yeah,
ahead of Waiters defensively.
yeah,
Just that step
definitely.
ahead that puts him in that, because you can't in the playoffs you can't allow for defensive inconsistency. It's just it's not going to work, especially in a system such as the Lakers where we rely on our defense, especially when we're not shooting well.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And when you're facing people like Lillard, McCollum, potentially Westbrook, Harden, you need them defensive guards on the floor, really.
definitely. Just to show someone like Harden a different look, especially if you've got a player like, say, Danny Green, Caruso, someone like that who's picking up fouls. JR is an obvious option to turn to if you just need someone to follow him around and just show him a different look on defensively. Because once Harden's so intelligent the way he attacks his defender, that once he knows how that defender wants to defend him, he'll just keep doing it and he'll keep going to it. And D'Antoni will allow him to keep going to that because it works. And if we can show them different defenders throughout the series and not allow Harden to get comfortable, that's massive.
Yeah, and obviously with the way this conversation is going, it is leaning into that second round matchup just naturally. So obviously Houston are up 3-2 at the moment over OKC. One more win would secure it for them. An OKC win would force it into Game 7. Who do you see winning that? Who do you see being the Lakers? Actually, we'll do it as two questions. Who do you see winning that series, and who do you want to win that series?
I think the Rockets win it. Coming in, I thought the Thunder might surprise and win it. I'd rather see the Thunder win it, but I think the Rockets have got it now. We match up much better against the Thunder just because we're not confused by the way they play. I think at the minute, the two games we played against the Rockets, we've been completely confused by the way they play because we're so massive, especially down low. Players, McGee can't work out how to play against the Rockets, and it really hurts us. Obviously, in a playoff series, we might see a different look. We might see, moving forward, I don't think he starts game one like this, but Vogel, if we struggle for a couple of games, we might see Davis play more minutes at the centre, which is obviously something we all call for throughout the season because we are brilliant when Davis plays at the centre. We might see that moving forward because that just gives us so much versatility defensively. If someone like Harden gets a switch onto McGee, we're toast defensively.
Yeah.
Whereas if Davis is the biggest guy that Harden gets a switch onto, Davis can defend out on the perimeter easily. I'd actually pick Davis out on the perimeter before I pick some of our perimeter players to guard Harden out on the perimeter. That's how consistent Davis is defensively. Obviously, I think what were we against OKC? We were 3-1 on the season. And against the Rockets, we lost this series 2-1 to them. So it shows in the season numbers that we match up better against OKC. They play more of a basic style of basketball, which is pick and roll. KCP runs the floor. It's something that you're used to as a defender, and with defensive schemes, you're more used to trying to defend against that. Especially our bigs are more used to defending against a player like Steven Adams. When our bigs are asked to guard someone like Robert Covington or PJ Tucker, for example, it's a completely different look, and it confuses the whole defensive scheme we play all year, and it just throws a spanner in the works. So obviously, I'd love to play OKC, but I can't see it being anyone else but the Rockets at this point.
Yeah. So when we played the Rockets in the first game this season, I've got it up here, January the 18th. It was a relatively comfortable win for the Lakers. And then the
Although
February the 6th,
that's very
yeah,
important to remember that was before they went full small ball as well. They still had
yeah,
Noah then as well, because we were the
exactly.
first team that played them full small ball, and it
Yeah.
was a shock to us, obviously. But yeah, go on.
And that was February the 6th. And that's what I
Yeah,
was going to go on to because it's a game that a lot of people remember. It's a game that I remember because I was there. I was in
yeah,
LA for that game.
yeah.
It was on the trade deadline.
You said,
And it was when they just started getting tons and tons of wings on the roster and no centers at all, pretty much.
yeah,
And that night it was a bit bittersweet because I wanted to see the Lakers win because I was in LA, but also I saw such a fascinating matchup that was just unlike anything this Lakers team had come across, and it completely bamboozled them. So, and then after that was the bubble game, which
yeah.
I think was just like I wouldn't really take much away from that,
No, well, that's the
especially with the
thing.
way the
That's the
Lakers were
thing.
playing.
We also lost to the only loss we took to OKC was within the bubble as well.
Yeah,
So I'm not really taking them as into consideration. Really, I'm more looking at what we were doing back
before.
back before the
Yeah.
suspension, because that's where we're at now with the way we're
Mm,
playing.
yeah.
But yeah, it's just the spanner in the works that the Rockets throw in with having such a small, quick lineup. I hate that matchup. I think within 7 games we work it out, but I think it takes way more adjustment than what it takes to defend the Thunder, because the Thunder just play basic offense. They're nothing different to 99% of the teams in the league, whereas the
Yeah.
Rockets are obviously the outlier in that. So yeah,
Yeah, I mean, that answers Amandeep's question that's in the comments. He said, how do you think we fare against a small ball Rockets team? Will they be able to shoot consistently for a 7 game series? I mean, with me, like, even when the Lakers, switching over to a Lakers standpoint, against Portland, even when they didn't shoot well, especially in that first game, they were still in that game
yeah,
until like the very end. So I think in terms of like, the Lakers are one of the best defensive teams in the league, and I think they're the best defensive team in the bubble, I think, at the moment,
uh-huh.
statistically. Um, I think over the course of a 7 game series, the Lakers do it, and I think they do it relatively comfortable, to be honest with you. I think it could be a similar format to the Portland series where it could very well be 4-2. I think realistically, 4-1, but I think realistically it'll probably go 6 games and be
Yeah,
4-2. I just don't think Houston keep up that effective small ball play throughout a full 7 game series. I think it'll bamboozle us for maybe one or two,
yeah,
and maybe a few mistakes might throw away 1 or 2 games, completely going away from the small ball lineup. But I think this Lakers team is special, and it's very hard to say because we've supported a bad Lakers team for such a long time
yeah.
that I think we know it deep down, but we don't really want to admit it. But it's going to take a lot to beat this Lakers team, and
Well, yeah,
I don't think it's the Rockets that
no,
will do that.
I don't. The key factor for me is the fact that we now have a consistent small ball lineup that we can go to as well,
Hmm.
to match them. Obviously, you put Davis at the center, and Kuzma can play power forward, or you can drop him back if you don't want to play a perimeter player like KCP or Green if they're struggling, say, which leaves room for someone like Marquise Morris to step in as well, which is another
Hmm.
option to play in a small ball lineup. He was massive against Portland in a couple of games there, and obviously stick LeBron and someone like Alex Caruso in there, and that's a lineup that you could match the Rockets like for like. But I think the main factor in the series is going to be AD. I think the Rockets have enough perimeter defense to throw at LeBron, enough big body players to throw at LeBron and try and slow him down. AD is going to be the big factor here in stepping up offensively and finishing inside as well. Because unlike the Trailblazers, the Rockets do not have two centers to put on the floor to try and stop AD from finishing inside, and he knows that. But he needs to be able to consistently continue to just finish inside, go to the free throw line, which is massive anyway.
Definitely.
Especially when LeBron is being stopped defensively, because they'll throw everything at LeBron. They can throw long doubles at LeBron, which is difficult. Obviously, he's one of the best passers in the game, so you don't worry about him passing out of a double. But we need our shooters to knock shots down as well. Otherwise,
Yeah.
you're getting triples thrown at AD down low, and if AD managed to get that ball out of there, and that someone like Danny Green doesn't hit that shot, that's that possession gone. And that's the big part of it. It's going to be AD and shooters that are going to win this series. I think LeBron might be. He's obviously going to be a factor playmaking wise, but scoring wise, I think they'll be able to slow him down.
Okay, and as we round this up, let's go for a few predictions. Obviously, it's not determined who the Lakers' second round opponents are just yet. We will be watching. I hope that we're not watching for too long, because I want to see the Lakers keep that momentum up and get back into action as quick as possible. So the three questions I have for you, predictions to throw forward, is how does the Rockets OKC game end? Is it going to go 7 games? Are Houston going to win the next game? Might OKC come in? So that's the first prediction. And then I want a prediction for just a score really for the series, in terms of if the Lakers play Houston or if they play OKC in the next round.
I think the Rockets finish it in 6, unfortunately. And I think you've got to look at the fact they played 4 games without their second best player. He came back last night, obviously, but he wasn't 100% in no way. If he can play to 50% of his capabilities, Russell Westbrook, I can't see OKC being able to slow down Harden enough either. In a game 6, and also the Rockets will be anxious to try and finish that off, because in the past the Rockets have been famous for going long in series and Harden running out of gas at the end, and they will want to finish it in 6. I wouldn't mind it going 7, because I personally wouldn't mind seeing the Lakers sit for a bit longer, because I think any rest we can get is massive. I'm not worried about us getting into rhythm, because I think we get into rhythm pretty quickly. I'd rather see another day's rest on AD and LeBron, to be honest, personally.
Okay.
And also it gives the opportunity for Rondo to get back healthy as well, without the pressure of being checked every other day to see if he's all right to play.
Yeah.
I'd rather see them rest, and I think obviously we face the Rockets moving forward, and I think it could quite easily go 7 games. Honestly, I'd obviously much rather see it go 5 or 6, but I honestly think that our defensive schemes will be completely messed up, and we've seen that Vogel doesn't like to change things too quickly. He'll only change things if he absolutely has to. I could see us getting to game 3 before Vogel thinks about changing defensive schemes, and I think we will really struggle defensively against the Rockets. Hopefully, obviously, I hope he changes it quite early on. I'd love to see him change it in game 1. I don't think he does. But yeah, I think we really struggle against the Rockets, and I think we could find ourselves 2-1 down possibly before Vogel even thinks about changing things. That's a pessimistic point of view, obviously, but I could easily see the Rockets taking us to 7. I don't think they beat us, because we've got 2 top 5 players in the league, and the Rockets only have 1 at the end of the day. But I think they could easily take us to 7.
Okay, and then if the OKC matchup did happen, how many games do you think? We're assuming that the Lakers would win.
Yeah, I'd take the Lakers in 5. I don't think.
Yeah.
I think I'd say that the Trailblazers are probably a stronger matchup against us than OKC are. Obviously, the Trailblazers are knackered, and OKC have a magnificent bench, but again, they don't have the perfect player to stop LeBron. Yeah. And there's not a lot of perfect players to stop LeBron. The Rockets are almost the best matchup to stop LeBron with players like Robert Covington and PJ Tucker. But the OKC just don't have that. And yeah, if you can't slow LeBron down to give him a bit of a struggle, then AD's going to be cooking as well. Because if all the attention's on LeBron, AD will easily just sink 30 points without you even realizing he's doing it. And
Yeah,
so
definitely.
if we end up facing OKC, I could see him polishing it off in 5 easily.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, I think it'll go 5 if we play OKC. I think I agree with you. I think they're definitely good enough to take one game. I think we will face the Rockets. I think they will wrap it up in the next game and win the OKC series in 6, like you said. I don't think it'll go 7. I'm a bit more confident in the Lakers' ability to get it done earlier than that. I'm going to predict that it'll be 4-2. It'll be done in 6. But we'll find out, and we'll have a few more live streams as well. We're going to push this a bit more moving forward. So before you go, do you want to let people know where they can find you? Similar to what we've done on the podcast. You're active over on Twitter, aren't you, predominantly?
Yeah, mainly. It's at Pollard NBA on Twitter. Drop us a follow. Basically, it's just me promoting my Lakers UK content and then talking random Lakers stuff most of the time. But yeah, go give me a follow and you'll get to know whenever I've written something else for Lakers UK, basically.
Yeah, definitely. And we'll get you on one of these in the future as well, for sure. But thanks for coming on. I really appreciate you coming on
I've
for a chat.
enjoyed it.
Yeah, no problem. Well, what I'll do is I'll exit you out and then I'll do an outro. So we'll speak soon for sure, like we will anyway. And I'm sure the viewers will see you very soon as well.
All right, no worries.
Okay, speak soon, mate.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.
So there we have it, guys. That's Cole, who's one of my right-hand men for Lakers UK, alongside Jonathan, who we're going to give him a shout out. He was going to jump on this live stream, but unfortunately had to drop out. So hopefully we will see him very soon. This will be put on IGTV, so if you want to go and watch it back, if you weren't able to catch the full live stream in its entirety. It'll also be put on YouTube as well, so just keep an eye out. You should be plenty of places for you to view it back. Do let us know what you think of this. It is the first time we've done it, and we do want to utilize Instagram more moving forward. Comment on the IGTV post, comment on YouTube, drop us a DM on Instagram, hit us up on Twitter. We're everywhere under LA Lakers UK. Speak to us, let us know what you think about it. And we're also, well, I'm a very friendly person, I like to think. So if you do want some general basketball chatter, some Lakers chat, come in my DMs as well. So yeah, we'll leave that there. Like I said, follow us on Twitter and Instagram under LA Lakers UK. We do have a website, lalakersuk.com. A bit of content goes out on there. It's kind of slowed down lately. I think we'll probably sit down and have a little bit of I'll talk strategy with Cole and Jonathan moving forward with that. So just keep an eye on that moving forward. So yeah, I'll leave it there. I'll stop rambling on. I've been your host, Matt, the founder of Lakers UK. You'll see my face a little bit more regularly over here on Instagram. So I hope you all enjoyed it, and I'll see you all soon.